Ryan Gordon's Special Connection with the Universe by Art Blum, 1995. Ryan Gordon pedaled fast, his mountain bike practically flying past dilapidated homes, an abandoned tire factory, and a vacant lot. The wind kicked up and blew back his dirty blonde hair. He'd grown another 2 inches over the summer, but felt himself shrinking, just like the city. If he got any smaller, he'd disappear altogether. Maybe that wasn't so bad. Better than being the last man on earth. Maria, his worry-wart guardian, said the end was near, said it just about every day, but it never lost its effect on him. He tried to shake off the feeling. Get a grip. First day jitters is all. He was about to start his first day as a freshman at Jessup High. First days are new beginnings, he thought hopefully, as he passed a sign that read, "Entire block for sale." Up ahead, signs of life at his favorite convenience store beckoned him. He pulled in for an early morning snack, and it was there he met the fat man. As Ryan chained his bike to a metal fence outside the convenience store, he spotted an empty, banged-up, powder-blue Geo Metro. With the Metro's engine idling and no one in it, Ryan's craving for a baby Ruth all but vanished. Who leaves their car with the engine running? Someone who wants to make a quick getaway, that's who. Like, for instance, a burglar or a kidnapper or a murderer. For all Ryan knew, maybe someone was being murdered right now, right behind the store. And what if... Then Ryan glimpsed a handicapped sticker draping down from the Metro's rearview mirror, and a much more likely scenario sprang to mind. Probably some poor scatterbrained feeble bastard who forgot to cut off the engine. For that matter, what's so unusual about someone leaving their car running at a convenience store? Always a victim of an overactive imagination, Ryan took solace with the notion that, at the very least, Sherlock would have been proud of his deductive skills. Just then, a hulking, heavy-set giant with greasy, blackish-gray hair came limping out of the store, balancing himself on a single silver aluminum crutch, wobbling like a man doing some high-wire act. He had a six-pack squeezed between his free arm and rib cage, with an open beer can held tightly between his thumb and 2 mangled forefingers, all that remained of his hand. He gulped down the entire contents of the can, squeezed it into a little ball, and flung it into the bushes at the side of the store. He tilted his head back and belched for what seemed like an eternity. Then he rubbed a jaw that sported a week's growth, yawned, and stared vacantly in the distance. His eyes had a glazed-over, lost look, until he spotted Ryan. Immediately, on shaky footing, he staggered straight at the scrawny kid. "Hey, you!" Ryan's eyes popped. "Yeah, you, I've been looking for you. Wait up, we gotta talk." Ryan squatted low behind his bike, breathing short and shallow. The man seemed like a charging dinosaur about to squish him like a bug. "Get in my car now, this is important." The world rushed at Ryan. His mind shifted into his wigged-out gear where the lights, those dazzling colored hues surrounding people, flashed on. Now the hobbling man, jackhammering toward him, had a bright red aura and smelled like 4th of July gunpowder. His voice sounded far away as he spoke. "Get in my car! We gotta talk." Quick as a cat, Ryan yanked the chain out from the spokes of his wheel and slung it around his neck. His bike bobbled as he hopped on. He deftly dodged the careening train wreck and maneuvered onto a bike path. He rode like hell. But even though Ryan had already put a good city block between them, he could still hear the man like he was 2 inches from his car. "You got 86 cents in your left pocket. A $5 bill in your right. You're not the only one, Ryan Gordon." He heard the man's voice as it trailed off. "It's time you figured out who you really are." Spraying gravel, Ryan skidded to a halt in a secluded alley. He hopped off his bike and dug his hand deep into his pocket. He scooped out all his change and counted it. 86 cents. The 5 he already knew was there. Guessing his pocket change was unnerving to say the least, but more puzzling, the man knew his name. And the "You're not the only one, Ryan" comment haunted him. The only one what? Ryan's million-dollar question. Who was this stranger? Not the big man stalking him. Who was Ryan Gordon? And did he have company? Were there more like him? Psychos who heard voices, saw things nobody else did, like ghosts and auras. "It's time you figured out who you really are." That gnawed at Ryan more than anything. He hungered for answers. Still, he wasn't stupid enough to get into a car with a total stranger, and a whack job at that. Or was he? Sometimes curiosity trumps stupidity if you're dying for answers. So he rode his bike back to the store. The fat man leaned against a pole as if expecting Ryan's return. 4 crushed beer cans lay at his feet as he chugged away on the 5th. Ryan braked 10 feet from the sorry figure, and the two studied each other. The man finished his beer and let the can fall on the other cans. His face looked serene, all the urgency gone. Finally, Ryan blurted out, "I won't get into a car with you." The big guy crushed the cans on the ground with his foot. "I always thought you was some kind of legend." His gaze shifted from the cans to Ryan. "We all did." "We?" Ryan waited for an answer, but all he got was a blank stare. "How do you know my name?" The big man chuckled, looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Listen closely, kid. Time is short." He shuffled closer to Ryan. The rear wheel of Ryan's bike clicked as he rolled backward. The man stopped in his tracks, and so did Ryan. His voice softened to almost a whisper. "Torkel is waiting for the signal. You got to give him the signal." Ryan's face looked like a question mark. "Let him know you're ready, that you're up for this. Can't wait much longer." He shot looks left and right. "It's coming." "Torkel? Signal? What signal? What happens when I give him the signal? What's coming?" The big man scratched his head and pulled out a twig stuck in his hair. "You'll see." It made not one grain of sense, and Ryan didn't know how to respond. Not without being rude, so he spun around on his bike and took off down the street like a rocket. Gym class, dodgeball. Ryan stood alone, facing 2 teams. They each looked at him like he was an ant everyone wanted to step on. It reminded him of the way the fat man looked at him, multiplied by 11. Last one picked. No one wanted him. Story of his life. Finally, the gym teacher barked, "Gordon!" and he pointed to the short, klutzy team. Ryan joined them and wiped the sweat off his face with a t-shirt emblazoned with a black and white photo of the school and the name Jessup in big bold letters stenciled over it. Some game. Ryan was benched after 5 seconds. The opposing team made him their main target as usual, same as in middle school. Some things never change. Being a human piñata was normal for him. As he lumbered to the sidelines, a member of his own team picked up the ball and smashed it into his back. At least he could sit things out on the sidelines for the rest of the gym period. Lunch. Ignored by the other kids, he sat by himself in a quiet corner, opened his journal, and wrote his Kenny stories. He'd written dozens of them over the years. They were about a little kid with amazing psychic powers, kind of a superhero type, but with one major problem. He was a prisoner, trapped in a little room and under the control of a huge government agency which used his skills to thwart various nefarious ventures. English class. He checked out Indigo Rivers, sitting in the back, wearing her manic pixie dream girl uniform and smacking pink bubblegum. Malcolm Sims stood in front of the class and rambled on about what he did over the summer. Research regarding his great-grandfather, one Earl Sims. He supposedly, way back in 1934, killed Morgan Jessup, the lady the school was named after, stole her jewelry and gold, worth a fortune. Miraculously, Malcolm found Earl's old diary under the crawl space of the shack where he lived, deep in the woods of Akron. Earl's very last ramblings, dated April 12, 1934, the day of Morgan Jessup's disappearance, were vague braggarts' claims of revenge. Morgan fired him from her construction company, and he was determined to get even. The diary held no clues as to where Earl or the treasure had disappeared. But Malcolm believed Earl left the diary behind for him to find. Malcolm surmised that all the rumors of the townsfolk catching Earl, stringing him up, and disposing of his body were true. The treasure had never been found. A discovery that big couldn't be kept secret, especially not during the Depression. Earl hid it somewhere, and somehow Malcolm was going to find it. After school, Ryan rode his bike back to the convenience store where he first spotted the big man. He looked all over for him, but the mystery man was gone, probably out of his life forever. He should have asked more questions. Maybe there was more to the story than just crazy talk. Torkel. Some signal he was supposed to give. Time running out. Crazy. Speaking of time, Ryan realized he was late. Maria was waiting. Back at home, over a skimpy TV dinner, Maria quizzed Ryan on his day. Since she saw signs of doom in every unspoken gesture of every stranger she passed on the street, Ryan never mentioned the fat man. A thing like that would be considered a monumental threat. The Grand Inquisitor would go on all night. With Maria, nothing was trivial. If a bird landed in a tree in the yard, why, it must be a spy. So Ryan assured her he'd kept a low profile, didn't create any waves, didn't look anyone in the eye, and only spoke when spoken to. That's how you have to live when you're on the run. That night, as Ryan lay awake in his bed, the twigs of the old oak tree in his yard chattered away. He tried to ignore it, but the tapping grew louder and had a dire quality. Ryan treaded to the window and slammed it shut, careful not to look outside. But curiosity won out, and he peeked under the curtain. A 6-foot body, dressed in dark work clothes, hung by a noose from the top branch. It swayed so close to his window, Ryan could almost reach out and touch it. The bloody back of its battered head faced him, and then it slowly twisted around until Ryan came face to face with a bloated, dark purple face bent at a 45-degree angle. Dead black eyes stared directly at him. Taking in deep breaths, Ryan ducked beneath the window. Inch by inch, he periscoped up again until he could see the tree. The body had gone. The chattering had stopped. Ryan crawled back to bed. He'd been seeing the ghost for a week now, but assumed it was just another toxic byproduct of his overactive imagination. But the strange guy at the convenience store was for sure real. It got him to thinking there was a connection between the two, something related to Maria and her forces of darkness closing in on him spiel. Ryan threw the blanket over his face and went to sleep.